Hi guys, number one Marmaduke fan here, and I hate Twitter drama. There's no news about Twitter drama anymore. I think everyone knows that a lot of comic book professionals are thin-skinned and will block you at a drop of the hat, or they'll say something stupid, and then rather than argue their point, they'll defend their point by getting condescending. So the only reason I want to talk about this is that Brett Booth wrote something that I think could be instructive to other artists. If you're an artist or a writer who's struggling, you're trying to make money from your craft and you're not sure how to go about it, what this conversation shows is that you can be a really good artist. You know, Brett Booth's got some talent and just miss something really obvious about the law of supply and demand, about really the most basic laws of economics. Now, I made the mistake of talking to Brett and bringing up the laws of supply and demand. I forgot that it's pretty much the N-word, the laws of supplies and demand, and rape. Those are the things that get you blocked on Twitter because they're taboo subjects. So please don't contact Brett. Please don't tweet at him. Don't try to engage in conversation with him. I feel like he won't benefit from you talking to him or trying to bring up these points to him. So please just ignore him. And that's not code either. That's not a Great Dane dog whistle to go do it. Just ignore this guy. The only reason I'm talking about this is I want you to benefit from understanding something really basic about the law of supply and demand that every artist has to deal with. Brett Booth was having a conversation with his followers for a while before I hopped in. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to help you follow the gist of the conversation before I enter. So the conversation really begins this way. Brett Booth is saying that the problem is there are a lot of people who are interested in the movies, but they just aren't interested in the comics, period. As has been said, there is no point as people who go to those movies aren't interested in the comics. They know they exist. They just aren't interested. You have people saying they are too expensive. Well, you can't pay the creators more and charge less. It doesn't add up. Oh boy. So this is where the problem begins. He doesn't get, basically, if you charge less for a product and sell more of the product, you end up with more money. If you make more money on the product, you have more to give the creators. A Twitter user replies, making cheaper comics, as in the paper and ink, would be a really viable strategy. Current customers would spend just as much for the books, and new customers would be more likely to spend a few dollars compared to current prices. This is obvious to people who shop and have to be discriminate about things they buy. If you go into a comic book shop and you're not super rich and $5 means something to you, and you think of $5 as a sandwich that can feed you for 2 meals, then a $5 buy is a big deal. If you go into a comic book shop and they're charging $30 for a really pristine graphic novel, that could be a student loan payment. Obviously, there are rich people for whom money is no object. For the vast majority of people, money is an object, and cheaper products obviously help them buy more of the products. Another person tweeted at Brett, Big Two should try newsprint again, and this pretty much triggered Brett. You guys gotta get off that. It's not any cheaper, and it looks terrible. Now, I don't know anything about the details of printing on newsprint in the print industry. All I know about newsprint is when I was in art school, a newsprint pad was probably about half the price of a Biggie sketch pad. And the Biggie sketch pad was even considered cheap compared to more pristine types of paper. It seems kind of obvious to me that if you want to save costs on comics, go with the cheapest paper possible. Now, it could be there are other factors that make that impractical. Maybe it's not possible for a Marvel or a DC to switch over to newsprint anymore. I don't know, but Spencer Desmond comments, and Spencer Desmond is someone who claims to be experienced in the print industry, actually using the machines. His contribution to the conversation is great. Spencer says, it's actually way cheaper and the look is purely opinion, but I've got almost a decade of experience in the print industry, both old school and digital offset. Pros pushing the newsprint isn't cheaper angle is sad and misinformed. This upsets Brett, and he starts quoting friends of his in the industry as an authority over the guy who actually works in a print shop. Talk to Eric Larson then. He looked into it. It might be cheaper for small runs, but the amount needed for the big two is vastly different, and if supplies are limited, costs will rise. Other printers have confirmed this. So, okay, that's maybe the only fair point of Brett's argument. Maybe it's not practical for Marvel and DC. Now, the way business works is if you're a big client and you go to a printer and you say, we want to print on newsprint, and they want your business, it's generally in the business's interest to make that happen. And yeah, the newsprint comics may not be common anymore, but there's still a newsprint industry. They're still cranking out those newsprint sketchbooks for Fundamentals of Art 101 students. The technology to make cheap paper still exists. So Spencer Grattan's, maybe it's not possible for the big two to do it, but I've done the research, ran machines myself. If you're doing a huge order, the price on newsprint goes down to you are basically paying to spin up the web printer. Brett then went on to argue that newsprint is going to become like the record industry, where it's nostalgic, there's a niche market for it, but it's not competitive. Now, why would newsprint be a niche market and the high quality quote unquote paper where the ink rubs off on my fingers, why is that not a niche market? It's all a niche market. But Spencer argues back. No one uses newsprint in comics, but it's still the cheapest paper stock in the world and always will be. It's not like records at all. You've been to any stores ever and seen a circular ad book? The ink doesn't bleed like it used to. So Brett personally doesn't like newsprint books, and that's fair. He seems to be the unusual one on this. Most people I've ever interacted with, they're nostalgic for newsprint. They like the texture of newsprint. They like the smell of newsprint. They like the look of newsprint. You can be personally against newsprint and just not like it and not be interested in it. But your personal preference doesn't have any relation to the cost of the material. Brett quote tweets Spencer. And by the way, he keeps quote tweeting. Generally speaking, quote tweeting is a way of saying, I'm not really interested in dialoguing with you. I'm interested in snapping my fingers in a Z formation, snap warning, and kind of in parentheses saying, you're an idiot. Now, maybe that's not his intent, but that's generally the intent of quote tweeting, which he's continually done to Spencer. Brett Booth says, I have, and it's still not very good. Sorry, I'd rather pay a bit more for quality. Why I prefer Blu-ray to DVDs. I have no problem doing reprints this way, but since no one does, maybe there's a reason. Like the stores aren't interested, and they don't sell well for them. This gets worse. Brett's problem is he projects his attitudes and assumptions onto everyone in the industry. And when something important is brought to his attention, he dismisses it. So it really the debate is over at this point. He's claimed that it's not cheaper to print on newsprint. A person in the industry has told him it is cheaper to print on newsprint. I don't know if it's possible for every company to print on newsprint, but it's obviously cheaper. So at this point, the debate over the substantive issue is pretty much over. Brett figured that the cost of newsprint, where the ink doesn't rub off on your hands, is about the same as the cost of glossy paper, where the ink rubs off all over your hands and you get it all over your face. And someone in the industry has confirmed that, yes, newsprint is a much cheaper form of stock. That doesn't mean that it's necessarily feasible for Marvel and DC to do it. I think they could ask. I think you can make it happen if you want to do business. But the debate over the cost of newsprint is over. From this point on, the debate spins off into tangents and irrelevancies. He's lost the important point, and now he's going to talk to his followers who confirm everything he believes conveniently. So talking to his followers, Brett Booth decides that, the newsprint doesn't matter. What matters is getting new readers. And I agree, getting new readers is one of the most important things we can do for the industry. Now, Comics Forevermore brings up, except younger new readers don't have the disposable income for $5 a book. But pretty sensible, right? And Brett Booth quote tweets and says, who gives them the money? And one of his followers comments that by demographic, teenagers have some of the highest disposable income. Okay, yeah. So a kid goes to mom and dad and they ask for some money for comic books. The kid isn't that worried about the cost of the product. They're just getting money from mom and dad. The problem is that I think that Brett is showing his privilege here. He's assuming that every kid does it that way. This is where the economics of it really starts to come in. I didn't grow up having like the American experience of having a lemonade stand because I lived out in the boondocks, surrounded by farmers. But I had the experience of wanting to buy Pokemon, begging mom and dad to get me Pokemon. And they said, no, you want Pokemon, you're going to have to earn it. And I did every chore they wanted until I had enough to earn Pokemon. I even have like this distinct childhood memory of them offering to help me buy the Game Boy, and then after they helped me buy the Game Boy, I think my mom called me at like 10 p.m. and said, your dad thought about it, and we're not going to help you buy any more video games. And I just said, okay. And so then I just earned all the rest of my video games from then on. And it was good. I learned the value of labor. I learned the value of earning something, and I loved those games. The only games I was given, I think, were like maybe special things like Christmas and my older brother giving me games he'd finished with, because my older brother was so cool. So I didn't have the experience of a lemonade stand, but I learned the lesson that a lot of kids learned having a lemonade stand at the Kid. And my conversation with Brett Booth, it feels a little bit like I'm watching a kid lose money on a lemonade stand, but it's not a kid. It's fully grown professional Brett Booth sitting at his pink Hello Kitty lemonade stand. He's worked so hard. He's put the glitter glue on all of his signs, and he's made the perfect Hello Kitty sign to go on the front of his lemonade stand. He got mom and dad to give him $200 to build a beautiful wooden stand and pay it pink, and even got red dye to make his lemonade pink colored. And he's charging $10 a glass for his amazing Hello Kitty lemonade. And as he's sitting behind the stand and he's frustrated that he's not making enough money, it's like I'm trying to explain how to sell lemonade to Brett. And every time I try to explain it, it's not just that he disagrees with me, it's that he thinks I'm an idiot for questioning his lemonade selling tactics. So not every kid, Brett, can just ask mom and dad for $5 and then go spend that on a comic book. Some kids have to do chores to earn it. And if it's a teenager with a job, sure, they have a lot of disposable income, but they still have to be discriminating about how they use their disposable income. The world is not just full of kids begging mom and dad for money who can get all the money they need to buy expensive comic books. Obviously, if you lower the price of the comic books, the kid's more inclined to buy those comic books, they'll buy more of those comic books, and they're more inclined to get hooked. So you're shooting yourself in the foot on the very topic that you and I agree we need to do. We need to get more young people interested in comics. How do you do that? By competing on price. And what are you competing against? The internet. The internet is free. They can watch PewDiePie all day for free. They can go to the library and read books for free. They can pirate the books for free, Brett. And I don't endorse piracy. I don't think you should pirate. But you have to compete with the reality that people can be entertained for free all their lives. So anything they spend on comic books is more than they probably should be spending on entertainment. We have to lower the price point to get anyone on board. And if you lower the price point, the people who are already on board buying comic books buy more of them. This is the part that upset me. This is where Brett Booth is throwing shade at Alterna Comics without mentioning Alterna Comics by name. Yeah, it's becoming a ridiculous argument now. They just ignore the fact that you can't pay creators a living wage at the $150 price point now, as long as they get their cheap books, but they'll spend a ton on a Kickstarter project. Brett has had harsh words with the owner of Alterna Comics in the past, so I think this is just Brett's grudge against Alterna coming up. Since you were willing to throw shade at Alterna Comic Books on public on Twitter, to attack an independent comic book publisher without naming them, that's really the reason why I decided this video had to be made. You're attacking a comic book industry that is doing the thing that you agree needs to happen. But we need to get more people in comics. Well, I can't afford $5 to get a whole bunch of comic books with old Marvel and DC characters. I could read comic books for free legally without piracy. The library actually would let me check out digitally comic books for free. I could read a comic book for free without pirating one comic book for the rest of my life and be happy. Alterna offers me the opportunity to read comic books for $1.50 and support a comic book shop. And so when I'm annoyed at Marvel and DC, when I'm sick of the black ink getting all over my hands and getting a low quality product from Marvel, then the Alterna book looks amazing. And 150 is bigger than 0. If I'm not willing to pay $4 or $5 plus tax, so it probably ends up being like $5.25 for a Marvel book, I am willing to pay $150 because it's a deal. Now, Brett is confusing two categories here: the impulse buy in a comic book shop with the Kickstarter project. The value of a Kickstarter project is there's a creator who I particularly want to support. I'm rooting for them. I want them to be successful. I want their book to exist. Therefore, I'm willing to pay a premium price to help make that happen for them. And that can't be that common. It has to be a very once in a while thing for me to support a Kickstarter or Indiegogo book. A Kickstarter book is more like a beautiful hardcover, bande dessinée book, where I might be willing to pay $30 or $40 for a beautiful, high-quality book that I keep on my shelf forever. But I've got to know that I want to keep that book forever before I part with that money. So he's confusing two completely different types of buys: the quick, cheap impulse buy with the beautiful, pristine, last forever buy. And frankly, libraries in the manga industry are kicking your butt on the cheap impulse buy. I can get more cheap entertainment from manga than I can from Marvel or DC. I can get more cheap entertainment from the internet than I can from Marvel or DC. You're not competing on the cheap end of the scale. You're only competing on the premium end of the... It's exactly like the Karate Kid. You karate yes, okay. You karate no, okay. You karate guess so, squish, just like grape. The Marvel and DC are making semi-premium books on semi-premium paper where it's still a cheap floppy, and it costs $5. It costs what it would cost me to get a movie at Walmart. Well, I'm just not interested. I'm not interested, Brett. Now maybe there are people who disagree with me. There are people who are richer than me for whom $5 is no big deal. I don't have to project my buying habits on to everybody. I just know as a common sense point, cheaper products means it's easier for people to buy it. I quote tweeted Brett and I wrote, "Grown adults with jobs spend a bunch on a Kickstarter project. Different demographic than the impulse buy. You can't pay creators a living wage if you don't sell product. A cheaper print material benefits the consumer and the seller." So let's get back to Brett Booth's Hello Kitty lemonade stand. He's charging $10 for a cup of lemonade, and Peter Simeti, he lives next door in the same little, folksy American suburban neighborhood, and he hears some people complain that, they like the Hello Kitty lemonade, but they feel like $10 for a cup of lemonade is a bit much. And Peter Simeti thinks, and he realizes, hey, here are some customers who are not feeling served. So he gets a bright idea. He gets the cheapest pile of plastic cups he can find. He fills them with ice and he fills them with tap water. And he doesn't spend $100 on his booth. He just sets up a 5-cent water stand, Alterna water. And all the thirsty people who were about to spend $10 for lemonade, but really they're just really thirsty, suddenly they can spend 5 cents and get a cup of water, and they're happy. And let's say Peter Simeti has worked it out that he's making about 4 cents of profit on every single cup he sells. It costs him about a penny to get the cups and the water. He makes 5 cents off of it. He's doing great. Suddenly all those customers are going to be coming to Peter Simeti. Now that's going to be annoying to Brett Booth with the $10 Hello Kitty pink lemonade. He's worked really hard on this. He's making a premium product. So his argument is, well, if you're selling water for 5 cents a cup, you can't afford to give someone a living wage. This is really annoying to me because a living wage is just this moral argument. It's very first world problem-y, and it doesn't have anything to do with the reality of selling products. Yeah, so Peter Simeti is selling a product for cheap, which means that he has people giving him less money, but he's making profit because he's offering something to them that they want. You can offer lemonade for $10, and maybe some people who are dying of thirst will pay $10 for the lemonade, Brett. But you can't make a living wage unless enough people are willing to pay $10 for the lemonade. You might make more money if people pay $5 for a book instead of $1.50 for a book. But if less people buy the book, Brett, you're going to make less money. Oh, all right. So Brett just tweets me, and he repeats an older argument. Who gives the kids money? Grown adults. Well, Well, maybe kids like you, Brett, were able to get a couple $100 from mom and dad to make your pink lemonade stand, but that's not every kid. You can't project your assumptions about consumers onto all consumers. So I reply to Brett, it's easier to ask mom and dad for $2 than to ask for $5. If it's a high school kid with a summer job, the same rule applies. Lowering cost and price can be a highly lucrative long-term strategy. So Brett quote tweets, what do you not understand about this? You can't pay a creative team a decent rate off $2 or at all. It's simply not possible. I want you to notice what's gotten lost in this conversation. This began as Brett talking about getting people into the industry, getting new readers, and people suggesting to him strongly that newsprint is the cheapest paper stock available, and that would lower costs. If you lower costs, everyone benefits. The people who make the book benefit because less money is being spent on the paper to make the book and more profits total are coming in. Now, if you lower the price, you might say, oh, well, then you're not making as much money. Yeah, but then you're also benefiting because more people can get on board the product, more people can read it, more people can share it. So it is literally a win-win. No matter what you do, if you lower the cost of production, either the consumer wins or your profits go up because you're charging more and making more profit overall. But really, it's the only way to increase the amount of readership at this point and get more people hooked is to offer it to as many people as possible. Now, I guess you could just put it online for free, and that'd be a good way of introducing it to people for cheap. But if you want it to be a comic book in a comic book store, help your local comic book shop, the only option that's left to you is more premium, beautiful, expensive books that people overpay for because they want to keep it forever, and more cheap, easy to get books that I can buy tons of and give away to kids without breaking the bank. This is 101 stuff. You can't make a lemonade stand work if you're charging $1 for a cup of lemonade and it costs you $2 to make that cup of lemonade. You can't make a lemonade stand work if you charge $10 for a cup of lemonade and people just aren't willing to pay $10 for a cup of lemonade. And you attacking Alterna Comics, Brett, but not by name, but everyone knows that's who you're talking about because they're selling water for 5 cents and making 4 cents in profit I don't care when you condescend to me because you're clearly just missing you want the comic book industry to succeed, but it's like it's flying over your head with a giant sign saying, here's the answer, the laws of supply and demand. And then you look up at that and you say, what don't you understand about this? Laws of supply and demand don't have anything to do with paying me a living wage. The world does not share your assumptions about things, Brett. Not every kid was as privileged as you clearly were. After that, I just did a little hyperbole. I got a little salty, and I said, okay, let's raise the price of every comic to $1,000, and we'll all be rich. If I sell a comic book for $1 million, I can overpay for materials and still make a living wage because I'll make $1 million. What could go wrong? So, this is hyperbole. I am putting forward a silly idea. Let's charge $1,000 for comic books because it points out something you know is true. You know you can't sell a comic book for $1,000. And it doesn't matter if you think, I'd make $1,000 if I just sold one comic book. It doesn't matter because almost no one's going to buy that unless it's some weird speculator collector, right? It'd be a very unusual situation where that would work. If you're selling a work of art, where there's only one of it on planet Earth, maybe you could charge $1,000 for it, but maybe no one thinks you're a good enough artist that your work is worth $1,000. Brett is talking about the comic book industry as if he's sitting at a table at an art convention selling his original drawings, and people like his drawing style, so he can charge a good price for it because people are paying for quality. A comic book is not like that, Brett. A comic book is a cheap commodity. If you lower the price of the book and you sell more of it, more people know about the characters. More people can share how they like the book and how they like the characters. You have more sales, meaning you can increase your total profits. This is the Walmart strategy. This is what every middle American learned. Selling lemonade. I guess Brett just asked his mom and dad for money whenever he wanted something as a kid. And congratulations, Brett. I wish you... I'm blocked now, but I wish you the best of luck navigating the laws of supply and demand and the market economy as an artist. Have fun. I'm going to keep reading alternative comics. I'm #1 Marmaduke fan. I love you guys. Study economics if you want to be an artist, and I'll catch you later.